What's up everyone? Today we have a pretty mixed day for the Bitcoin miners. Some are rallying on good earnings, some are a little down like Iron and Cypher's case, some are somewhat flat like CleanSpark's case and Stronghold, but some are popping on good earnings such as Mara. We have BitDeer also recovering after a massive drop a few days ago. We're going to look at Mara's earnings, look at its chart, we're going to look at Bitcoin's chart, we're going to talk about a Bitcoin adoption study, and we're going to talk about some Bitcoin news in terms of the US and adoption. First off, this Bitcoin adoption research. So River Intelligence reveals that Bitcoin's currently in the early stages of adoption, according to them, suggesting that big things are yet to come. For instance, River outlines that the current Bitcoin adoption level is comparable to that of the internet in 1990 or social media in 2005. They have some different tidbits in this study, but I will leave it down below for you. We'll highlight a few things. First off, they say that adoption is in the early stages because, according to this, Bitcoin is only 3% of its full potential compared to the internet in 1990, social media in 2005, online banking in 1996. Now, how they came to this conclusion is the study cites the following metrics to support this figure. Only 4% of the global population owns Bitcoin. Institutions are largely ignoring Bitcoin when it comes to allocating it in their portfolios, while the TAM, or total addressable market, remains below 1% of an estimated amount that they aren't disclosing. What about value? Well, Bitcoin's proven to be more of a store of value than a means of everyday payment. The average transaction value in 2024 was worth 17.8 thousand, according to River. Since 2021, the annual amount of value transferred via Bitcoin has been over 1 trillion. In 2024, this amount reached 3.43 trillion. Lower than in 2021 and 2022, but higher than in 2023. In 2024, the main price drivers were Bitcoin ETFs and businesses. However, Bitcoin remained people's crypto, with almost 70% owned by individuals, 4.4% by companies, 6.1% by funds and ETFs, and only 1.4% by governments. In 2024 alone, the amount of business-held Bitcoin increased by 80%. And as said by Tur de Meester, sorry if I butchered that, today, individuals control 70% of all Bitcoin. This is likely the highest it will ever be in the coming century. And what about the Bitcoin that's lost in translation, locked away? As of the end of last year, over 1.5 million Bitcoin, or 7.5% of the total supply, are considered lost, while another nearly 1 million Bitcoin, or 948,000, or 4.6% of the supply, are associated with Satoshi's own wallets. Nearly 1% of the supply is held by bankrupt estates, and the total amount of locked Bitcoin exceeds 2.7 million, or about 13% of the total supply. Now we'll leave it here at decentralization and quickly mention this, then move on. In terms of decentralization, the active developers are increasing, but also the number of nodes and the network hash rate volume are constantly growing. In any given year, the number of nodes by the end of that year is typically always more than the previous year. There are issues, however, such as decentralization. Over a third of the total hash rate is produced by only a few public companies. The top 3 mining pools produce around 60% of the total hash rate. Now, when we're talking about different countries, the US is 36% of the hash rate, Russia at 16%, and China at 14%. There is also a subcommittee hearing on crypto regulation. Now, it seems like this hearing was much more focused on stablecoins. There are also talks about KYC, or Know Your Customer. Now, there were some words on Bitcoin, but the focus was definitely stablecoins. And as said by Senator Cynthia Lummis, we've come a long way from when people were just starting to understand Bitcoin and stablecoins. Now we're ready to make progress. We're in the early stages of Bitcoin and digital assets. If we are going to pass any legislation, we need bipartisan support. Today's hearing was the first step. However, as I said, stablecoins were the main focus. The Genius Act, for instance, is expected to protect the U.S. banking system, create equal rules for stablecoin regulations at both the state and federal levels. Senator Cynthia Lummis is confident that rules for stablecoins could be ready soon, meaning more legislation in the future, possibly focusing more on crypto, on Bitcoin, rather than stablecoins. We also have to talk about M2 global money supply. Different crypto analysts have pointed out this M2 supply and how Bitcoin correlates with it about 83% of the time. And as said by Pav Handel, the lead analyst at Australian crypto exchange SwiftX, the data we have suggests that spot buyers are active right now. The US has raised its debt ceiling by $4 trillion. And with weakness in the dollar causing a net positive effect on global M2, it's just a matter of time, hopefully, before Bitcoin realizes this. You can see how often it is correlated, sometimes at a slight delay, but you can see how closely they trek together. Alright, now we have to talk about Mara's earnings. They had a positive earnings, reported a profit, and they are exploring opportunities with AI. A lot of these Bitcoin miners are branching into AI, and I do think versus the ones that don't get into AI, there will be a gap that narrows, with the ones that are solely into Bitcoin mining likely outgrowing their hash rate versus the ones that are starting to focus on AI. Revenue increased by 37% in Q4. Now I went to Mara's investor relations because that article didn't actually have any numbers, but check this out. They increased their revenue 69% year over year to $656.4 million in revenue. Their net income was $541 million, up from $261 million. They have cash and Bitcoin holdings of $4.6 billion, and they are currently sitting at a market cap of $4.6 billion. These Bitcoin miners are very cheap. Many of these Bitcoin miners' market caps are pretty much at their assets owned. Mara's PE ratio is a 7.9, which is insane for a company that should be continuing to grow revenue and continuing to earn more throughout the rest of this cycle. Just like a lot of the other Bitcoin miners, Mara has shown some weakness as of recently. We broke this ascending support, and Mara did sell off quite a bit. Mara, as it stands from crypto market low, is about 346% up, cycle low till here, whereas Bitcoin is up about 435% from cycle low. Mara has guided in their next earnings for another profitable quarter and more growth in revenue, 226 million expected versus the 214 million reported. These Bitcoin miners throughout the rest of this cycle should see increasing revenue, should continue to see profitable quarters, should continue to add Bitcoin to their balance sheets, more cash on hand, less debt, as they continue to be profitable. If you're looking at these Bitcoin miners' fundamentals and are very pleased, but then you look at the price and see that it's down a bit, is that going to stop you from investing in these companies that should continue growing revenue and continue posting profitable quarters? Would you rather be buying Mara at highs on profitable earnings or at recent lows? What would be the better return? Now, as I mentioned in my last video, Bitcoin is oversold. It doesn't happen very often. It's happened about 4 times this cycle, essentially. Here is our bear market low of 15K, which is basically where we bottomed out. I wouldn't count this oversold level because this is basically where the cycle started at 15,000. We did hit oversold here in August of 2023. In hindsight, that was a fantastic time to buy. We hit oversold again during all that Mt. Gox fear in 2024 of the summer and in early fall. Early August marked the bottom. Bitcoin went down to 49K. In hindsight, that was a fantastic time to buy. You ended up making a double before Bitcoin pulled back again. This is another opportunity again, in my opinion. Bitcoin doesn't go oversold very much. This is the 4th time this cycle. And let me show you something also very interesting. On the 4-hour, we do have an RSI divergence, a bullish RSI divergence. The RSI is starting to pick up while the price continues to drop. Maybe we reverse here. Maybe we'll see an RSI divergence on the daily before we reverse. I will show you an instance in the past. During the Mt. Gox fear, when we sold off, we did have an RSI divergence. The RSI saw a higher low while the price went lower. This did mark the bottom. Keep an eye on the RSI divergences. If we get an RSI divergence not only on the 4-hour here like we see, but also on the daily, that'll be even more of a positive signal. Bitcoin also bounced at the 200 MA. The 200 MA is now hanging at about $82,000. I do think there is a likelihood that the market still respects this falling wedge despite this, what I would call a false breakout. We didn't get a candle to close under. We only had a sharp wick down to the 200 MA, then we recovered. I wouldn't be surprised personally to see a bounce here to about 92,000 before pulling back again, or breaking out of this falling wedge. In the end, let the cycle do the work for you. Follow the cycle. Bitcoin has always followed its cycle, and we have no reason to expect otherwise here. You're obviously free to make your own decisions and moves, but in my opinion, Bitcoin is still following its cycle. I do think when we're looking back 3 months from now, maybe 6 months from now, we will see this oversold opportunity as a fantastic opportunity to have added. And just like this opportunity down to 49K offered a double up before pulling back, I think there's a good opportunity that buying here offers nearly a double up before pulling back, or a move to nearly 150K before we pull back again. But let me know if you think I sound a little too bullish with that prediction. Do I sound too bearish with that prediction? People are always so worried, always doom and gloom when the Bitcoin miners are at lows. People seem a lot more happy, a lot more excited when the Bitcoin miners are overbought. Seem more willing to buy when they're overbought rather than buying when they're oversold. If you believe in the Bitcoin miners over the rest of the cycle, if you believe they're going to post profitable quarters, post growing revenue, continue to add to the Bitcoin balances, those that hold Bitcoin. If you believe Bitcoin will continue its cycle, hit new all-time highs this year, why would you be scared of the Bitcoin miners when they're so oversold, when they're at a pretty fair value in my opinion? when they're hardly at a premium to their future projections. But I'll leave it at that for now. How are you guys feeling about today? It's definitely a bit of a mixed day. Some Bitcoin miners are doing pretty good. Some Bitcoin miners are pulling back a bit. It's a positive sign seeing Bitcoin being bought up at the 200 MA. Keep an eye on those RSI divergences, especially on the daily. As we get through the next couple of days, we'll see if the RSI picks up higher and the price goes lower, or we'll see what happens there. But keep in mind, last time we were oversold, we did see a nice RSI divergence, a fantastic opportunity to buy. And I do think this will play out to be no different. But what do you guys think? Do you think Bitcoin cycle will continue as it always has? Or do you think this cycle ends a little bit early, possibly considering that all-time high came in early this cycle as well? But anyways, I appreciate you guys. If you made it this far, consider hitting the like, subscribe, ring the notification bell. I don't say that often. I probably should say it more. But anyways, thanks again, guys, and I'll see you next time.